and welcome. Raising Your Game today. I'm David Levin. This is our Friday episode, so we're talking all things inner game. Tuesdays are for sports and sports parenting. Fridays are for everything and everyone. So how are you today? How are things with your inner game? You feeling good, or maybe feeling stressed, worried? What's going on in there? So for me, I will say good. Actually been great lately. Had an excellent run of days. Just woke up this morning dragging. No particular reason, just heavy, sleepy, foggy, hungry. Sort of weird actually. It's just one of those days, I guess. So that's where I'm at today. Maybe need to go back to bed. Some things to talk about today. My ups and downs for the week. The role of attention management in our happiness. The big Fox News settlement. The mistake of comparing where we are in our journey to where others are, seasonal allergies, news addiction, and our recommended items. So I'll start with my ups and downs. What things were lifting me up this past week? What things were pulling me down, making life harder? In the ups column for me this week, I noticed a lot of my ups have to do with my kids. And that's great. I love that. And this week, it was just a little thing. Margaret and Francis and I had watched the latest episode, Ted Lasso, I think. And after the show, Francis and I just sat there, my daughter, of course, Francis, and talked for almost an hour. Nothing in particular, this and that. Possibly a bit of dad-splaining in there, can't help myself there. But it was just really nice. You know, we don't do that very often, not with that kind of focus. And it just tickled me for all those reasons we've talked about before. The talk itself was fun. The fact that we did it. The fact that things like that are not going to, happen forever. It was just lovely. Also, I have to say, on the up category, I had another great call with a coaching student this week. Actually, 2 different calls with different students. And I just cannot get over, first of all, the difference training makes for them, but also how great and uplifting it is for me to hear them talk about it. I just feel so fortunate to have these conversations. They're just another huge up for me every time. For my downs, and this is kind of funny to me, but I'm always complaining about the winter weather, right? You're probably tired of me talking about that. But as soon as spring starts, and it's just right on the edge right now, the allergies kick in, my allergies, and they really started kicking my butt this week. And now that I think about it, that might be what's happening this morning with all that. I just got so dragged down. I took 2 naps in one day last week. Probably could have taken more. It's just incredible. So again, this is a classic down, what we call a high gravity situation in the training. I'm feeling weighed down like that. When I'm feeling weighed down like that, everything else is harder, right? Especially things that require willpower, like sticking to my diet. So anyway, that's a good bad one. Allergy season kicking my butt. So those are my ups and downs this week. Next up, our quote of the week. All right, our quote of the week. This week, we'll hear just a lovely thought that's reported to be a Maori proverb. Maori, of course, are the indigenous people of mainland New Zealand. And the quote is, "Turn your face to the sun and the shadows fall behind you." Turn your face to the sun and the shadows fall behind you. The imagery of that is so great. You can picture exactly what it's saying. You almost can't not picture it, which makes the metaphor all the more powerful. And what I take from it is, point your attention to the good, to the things that make you happy and feel better. And the bad things, the bad feelings, fade away. They fade from your awareness. Now, that doesn't mean we should pretend bad things don't exist. I'm not saying that, although you could read it that way. But I just see it on a more practical level. Our attention is naturally drawn to trouble and worry and negativity. But if we can point our attention to positive things, it really helps in a profound way. And I actually do that on a pretty regular basis. I'll notice myself thinking about something negative. And again, it's not something that genuinely needs attention. It's just negative noise of one kind or another. What might happen, what people might think. It's not at all helpful. So I'll notice that and I'll just stop myself and say, nope, not going to think about that. Let's think about something good instead. Things that, went well with work. course, frequently it's something with Margaret and the kids. There's always something good to focus on. And it really does work. So on the one level, it's just a practical suggestion and a great one. The only trick is learning to point your attention. That's not something we all just know how to do. We need to learn it. The good news is it's easy to learn, and I know that because that's what I'm doing every week with my Sports Academy coaching. That's what they're learning, and they get it right away. But until it's presented in a particular way, they don't know how to do it, and none of us really do. So anyway, that is the quote for this week. Turn your face to the sun, and the shadows fall behind you. It's beautiful. All right, think about that, and we'll move on to our top stories. Okay, top stories. This week, I want to say a bit about the big Fox News settlement. If you don't know, Dominion Systems, a company that provides voting machines around the country, was suing Fox for defamation because the lies they spread about their machines somehow flipping votes from Trump to Biden. Defamation is normally very hard to prove for a media company. There are a lot of protections there. The bar is super high. But the evidence that came out was just incredibly strong, that Fox absolutely knew the claims were false, but they continued to spread them because their ratings were dropping when they didn't. One of the great quotes that came out was Rupert Murdoch, the owner, saying, "It wasn't red or blue, this was green." Could not be more clear, right? We did this even though we knew it was false, and we knew it was bad for the country. I mean, there were some emails that specifically showed that also. In spite of all that, we did it for the money. Oh my goodness. So Dominion was suing them for $1.6 billion, which was actually quite a lot in damages for a company that was worth something like $60 million. But the case looked super strong. The jury was seated in New York. The lawyers were about to present opening arguments. And I was so excited to hear Rupert Murdoch and Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, all those lying, posing fucks under oath. I just could not wait. Publicly shamed for their lying, dangerous bullshit. But at the last minute, they reached a settlement. $787 million. No trial. All over. I was so disappointed. I just so wanted to have that trial happen. But I've had some time to think about it, hear from my trusted experts. I guess it's okay. It is a historic settlement for a case like this. It's huge, really. I don't know yet if Fox will be required to make a public statement. That would be nice. Also, there are more lawsuits coming. Smartmatic, another voting machine company, is coming right behind him with a similar suit because Fox also lied about them. Word is that, as of this recording, at least 2 shareholder lawsuits are also coming, saying the board violated its fiscal duty by putting the company at risk with these lies. Apparently those can also do some damage. So they're definitely having some serious consequences for this, but I still just emotionally feel like they got off a little bit, right? It's just money. They have plenty more. Not much public shame. Not, as far as I can tell, stopped from doing similar things in the future. We'll see. The good part about it, of course, is just to see some accountability, right? Some consequences. That's always the hardest part about this. Sort of the same thing as with the Clarence Thomas scandals coming out, if you're following those, where he's just ignoring all these important norms and standards. And it seemed like nothing can be done about it. That just kills me to see that people can do truly harmful things and just have no consequences. That's when I really get disheartened for our system. So that's the best part of this, and it looks like that is for real. I should feel better about it than I do. Again, we'll see how it plays out. Also, of course, on our Tolstoy scale of how good or bad this is for humanity, the Fox behavior, the lies, short of actual physical violence, this is as bad as it gets. Intentionally doing public harm for personal benefit. I'm giving that a 4.5, just half a point credit for not directly inciting violence. Pretty low bar. Nice job on that one. On the flip side, the lawsuit, the settlement, bringing some accountability, that's great. That's exactly what we need, even if maybe we could have got a little more. So that's the news from me for this week. Next up, Inner Game Gold. All right, Inner Game Gold. So again, these are the ideas and concepts I come back to over and over to help me stay on track. Not just a single quote, but like a foundational concept that really helps me stay focused. All right, so this week, I have another new one to share. This was originally presented in a business context, like for small business owners, and especially those like me who offer online training, things like that. But it actually goes quite a bit further than that, I think. And the idea is this: never compare your backstage to someone else's front stage. So you see someone you admire doing what you're doing, what you'd like to be doing maybe. They seem successful and, of course, happy. And they're ahead of you on that path, right? Bigger, more successful, certainly happier. That has to be true, though maybe not, of course, we know. And it knocks you down, right? To make that comparison. I can't do that. I'll never get there. It's just not possible for me. It is depressing and disheartening, and it keeps you from moving forward. But what we're forgetting when we do that is what it was like for them when they started out, right? Every successful person, every successful business, by definition, started from zero, just like you. No products, no customers, no social media following, no proof that what they wanted to do would even work, right? Truly nothing. And that's how it works for everyone, and we forget that. And success also tends to accelerate slowly. The beginning is super slow and hard and frustrating, and it stays that way for a long time until, hopefully, it reaches some critical mass and gets some traction. And by the way, even at that point, it's not easy, right? Those happy, smiling people are still working super hard and struggling and feeling insecure and failing at things every day because we just do, and we don't see that, right? But it's like the Instagram sort of phenomenon where you see pictures of people's perfect moments that aren't what their actual lives are like. But anyway, this is the reality. Every project starts from zero, and comparing our backstage, the daily reality of what we're trying to do, with the front stage, the artificial presentation of how great things are for people who are also farther along the path than we are, it's just a bad idea. It gives you the false impression that you're failing and makes it that much harder to keep going, which of course is the opposite of what you want to do. So that's our Inner Game Gold this week. Never compare your backstage to someone else's front stage. Very helpful perspective to remember. All right, next up, raise your outer game. All right, raise your outer game. This is where we talk about things we care about in our outer life, our health, our relationships, our finances. And this week, I don't really have much except maybe say a little more about seasonal allergies. I was never aware of this for myself until the last 10 years or so. Margaret has allergies, has as long as I've known her. Our son Peter has them. So we all got tested way back. And it was funny, actually. I don't get the sniffly runny nose thing they do, so I never thought I had allergies. But I went in for testing when they did, and I came back with the biggest reactions of all. But they just show up differently for me. For me, it's mostly fatigue, sleepiness, heaviness, kind of mental fog, and it's just a killer. So it's tree pollen, grass pollen, hay fever. They knock me out. So I guess I would say, if you have reactions of one kind or another, those kind of things, during the spring and the fall that maybe you've never even thought about that much, it might be worth getting an allergy test. One of those where they prick your skin with all those different compounds and see which ones flare up. I showed nothing for cats and dogs and dust mites and all that normal stuff, but my seasonal reactions were huge. And then the point is, most of the time, the typical over-the-counter meds for this, I use Zyrtec, they're super effective. So they really help me knock down these symptoms and get back to my normal energy. So super helpful to know. So, of course, you can do something about it. So anyway, that's my outer game this week. Just seasonal allergies. If you have symptoms this time of year and you haven't had them checked, it helped a ton. Might be worth doing. All right, next up, our charging station challenge. All right, our challenge. So last week, we had you go deep. 1 week, 6 days, no daily news. I hope you tried that. I was doing it right along with you. And man, it is super hard, still hard. I want to check it all the time. And there are a couple interesting things about that. It's clear to me that what I really want when I'm doing that, when I'm feeling the need to do it, is some short, interesting burst of news, some novelty, something, satisfying. I find myself just staring at my phone, looking for an app, just thinking, is there anything here that might give me that little burst? Normally, of course, it'd be one of my news apps. But when I'm avoiding that, like in this challenge, I can't do that. So I just sit there, desperately looking for something, anything, the weather. I've checked it 10 times today, but maybe again, stocks, anything, please. And a couple things, there have been a couple items this week where I did go check a news app, not to scroll, but just to find out one piece of information. And while I was there, I just did a quick scan of the page, and there was nothing there of any interest to me, nothing important. And that's almost always the case. It's so fascinating to realize how little need there actually is to check for the latest news because, again, there's almost never anything there. But the addiction to that feeling, when there is something there, is so powerful that I'm still really fighting it. I'm probably 10 days in now. It hasn't gone away yet at all. Even with being reminded intellectually that there's nothing there, the pull is still super strong. But that just reinforces for me how important it is to do this. An addiction like this is exactly the kind of thing that keeps us in a sleepwalking sort of state. We're just being pulled around by this unconscious need for one stimulation or another. There's nothing good in it for us. We don't need it. And it's super helpful to break free from it. I said I'm still struggling with the pull. That's true. But I'm also feeling the positive benefits of resisting that pull. So I'm going to keep it up for this week. And I guess I'm going to invite you to keep doing it with me. So that's the challenge for this week. Keep up the good work. Once again, no daily news for the next 6 days. See if you can do it. See what it's like for you. Share your experience in the community. If you're not in the community yet, as I always say, click the link in the notes. It's free. Just register. You can go straight into the challenge. We'd love to have you join us. That's it for this week's Charging Station Challenge. Next up, highly recommended. Okay, so these are, of course, the things I'm crazy about right now, or just I'm doing, and I'll let you know what I make of them. So this week, a couple of related items, and these are things I'm crazy about. First, an episode of Sam Harris's podcast, Waking Up. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this yet. I'm a big Sam Harris fan, just to start with. I think I've mentioned him in the intro to my book. His book, The End of Faith, had a huge impact on me, and really all this material, kind of part of that original impulse to do all this work in the first place. His podcast is great, Waking Up, one of my favorites. No ads. The content is always interesting. So check that out in general. But his guest this week was an expert in self-defense. I guess you would say that. His name is Matt Thornton. His book is called The Gift of Violence, which is, something I would initially think was not for me at all. I'm super conflict averse. Violence is the last thing I'm interested in. But it's not what it sounds like. He's a super smart guy. He's present, genuine, very impressive. And his perspective is just fascinating and fresh and honestly seems important. I bought his book. I haven't started it. Can't recommend that yet, but I highly recommend his episode on Sam's pod. So I'll put that in the notes along with the book in case you want to get that. And that is it for this week's show. If you like what you heard, please do tell your friends, invite them to join us, and rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast. It really does help more people find the show and get the mental game boost we all need. If you have teenagers in sports, check out our Mental Game Starter Kit. It's a great set of resources to get you started on the path of helping your child boost their mental game, and there's just nothing more important and valuable we can do for them. RaiseYourInnerGame.com, scroll down to the bottom. You can learn about the starter kit there and register. All free, of course. Super helpful there. If you'd like to support the show so we can keep things ad-free, please click the Buy Me a Coffee link below, and thank you for that. For more mental game goodness, I've mentioned the community, but please come join us there, the Raise Your Inner Game charging station. Click the link here, totally free. Would love to have you join us over there. If you're listening to this on audio, but you like video, we post all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. So there's a link to that in the show notes. And finally, we'll close with Leo Tolstoy, again from the Raise Your Inner Game book. The ultimate purpose in life is to serve humanity. To serve humanity. That's what we're doing. We're serving the people in our lives. It's super important. So keep up the good work, and we'll see you next time.